Good morning everyone, Kabaka Pilipino, magbasa na tayo nating history. History of the Filipino People by Agoncillo and Guerrero. Today is 23 December 2022, History of the Filipino People Part 3, Reform and Revolution. Topic number 10, the Revolution First Phase, Paragraph, the Trial and Execution of Bonifacio. Basa. The Trial and Execution of Bonifacio. From Naik Bonifacio, his wife and two brothers with a handful of loyal followers transferred to the barrio of Limbon in Dam. The Naik Military Agreement came to the knowledge of Aguinaldo, and realizing the significance of Bonifacio's intentions, he ordered the arrest of the Bonifacio brothers. A group of soldiers under the command of Colonel Agapito Bonzon was dispatched to Limbon to effect the arrest. Bonzon ordered his men to surround the perimeter of the zone of which Bonifacio's house was the center. A skirmish was inevitable, and in the firing that followed, Bonifacio was stabbed in the larynx. His brother Soriaco was killed, and his other brother Procopio was wounded. Bonifacio was placed in a hammock and brought to Naik, the capital of the rebel government. On April 28, Aguinaldo forwarded the Bonifacio case to the Council of War in order to conduct the necessary trial. On April 29, personnel of the Council of War was completed with Colonel Pedro Lipana and the judge advocate. Jose Elises was fiscal, while Placido Martinez and Teodoro Gonzalez was appointed defense attorneys of Andres and Procopio respectively. The trial lasted from April 29 to May 4. The council, guys, ang bilis ng trial nila, ano lang siya, April 29 to May 4, so nasa ano lang yan, nasa ilang days lang yan. The trial lasted from April 29 to May 4. The Council of War that tried the Bonifacio brothers was composed of General Mariano Noriel, President, and Crisostomo Riel, General Tomas Mascardo, Placido Martinez, Bonifacio's attorney, Mariana Rego, the judge, Esteban Infante, and Sulpicio Antony, members. Andres and Procopio Bonifacio were found guilty of treason and sedition in spite of the fact that the evidence was not sufficient to prove their alleged guilt. Bonifacio was returned to jail pending the reading of the sentence. On May 8, Baldomero Aguinaldo, the Auditor of War, wrote President Aguinaldo recommending approval of the Council of War's decision, namely execution of the two brothers. On the same day, May 8, President Aguinaldo commuted the death sentence to banishment. As soon as this order changing the death sentence to banishment reached the headquarters of Generals Mariano Noriel and Pio del Pilar, they immediately rushed to General Aguinaldo and asked him to withdraw his order. The reason that with Bonifacio alive, the cause of the revolution would be prejudiced, since he would continue to disrupt the unity of the revolutionary forces. The two generals were seconded by Clemente Jose Solveda, Dr. Anastasio Francisco, and General Mamerto Natividad, all of whom hated Bonifacio. Under this pressure, General Aguinaldo withdrew his order. In other words, the original decision of the Council of War stood. Early on the morning of May 10, General Noriel ordered Major Lazaro Macapagal to bring out the two brothers from jail. Macapagal was handed a sealed letter with orders to read its contents. After reaching Mount Tala, Macapagal chose 4 soldiers to accompany him in his mission. Having reached the vicinity of the mountain, Macapagal, upon the request of Bonifacio, opened the sealed letter. It contained an order to execute Andres and Procopio Bonifacio. There was a warning that failure to comply with the order would be punished severely. Without much ado, Macapagal followed the order. Bonifacio's grave was shallow, the hole having been dug by bayonets. Macapagal placed a few twigs on the grave. The revolution continues. When Macapagal returned to Maragondon, where the new rebel capital had been established following the capture of Naik by the enemy, he found the Filipino forces retreating and the Spaniards pounding the town furiously. The enemy, however, suffered much, for the Spanish soldiers, most of whom had just arrived from Spain, were not accustomed to the tropical climate. General Camilo de Polavieja, tired to the endless battles, asked for his relief as Governor-General. His request was granted on April 15, 1897. He sailed for Spain. He was replaced by a former Governor-General of the Philippines, Fernando Primo de Rivera. Primo de Rivera arrived in Manila on April 23. He immediately conferred with the military commanders regarding the general situation in the Philippines. He found out, to his dismay, that far from being demoralized, the Filipinos were united against the Spaniards. At the end of the month, he marched to Cavite to take personal charge of the military operations. First, he issued a decree granting pardon to those who, up to May 17, would give up their arms and surrender to the government. Most Filipinos ignored this decree. Forthwith, Primo de Rivera launched a spirited campaign against the rebels, forcing Aguinaldo and his men to retreat to Batangas. With almost all of Cavite in the hands of the Spaniards, Primo de Rivera issued another decree extending the benefit of his pardon beyond May 17. His purpose was to win over the Filipinos to his policy of attraction. A few took advantage of the governor's decree, while the rest continued their resistance against the enemy. Aguinaldo, meanwhile, was in Talisay, Batangas, where he had established his headquarters. The enemy surrounded the area in the hope of capturing him, but he slipped through the Spanish cordon on June 10 and proceeded with his men to the hilly region of Morong, Rizal. With 500 picked men, he crossed the Pasig to Biyak-na-Bato near Guadalupe, and from here he secretly passed through San Juan del Monte and Montalban and on to Mount Puray. After a well-earned rest, Aguinaldo and his men proceeded to Biyak-na-Bato, San Miguel de Bayomo in Bulacan, where he established his headquarters. The government of Central Luzon. News of Aguinaldo's arrival at Biyak-na-Bato reached the towns of Central Luzon. As a consequence, armies from Pangasinan, Zambales, the Ilocos provinces, Tarlac, and Nueva Ecija renewed their armed resistance against the enemy. From Biyak-na-Bato, Aguinaldo and his men joined forces with those of General Mariano Llanera of Nueva Ecija and harassed the Spanish soldiers garrisoned in the Central Luzon provinces. With the coming of the rainy season, Primo de Rivera's campaigns were temporarily halted. Meanwhile, at Puray, the rebels met in the camp of General de Sergio Geronimo. Thus assembled established the departmental government of Central Luzon, comprising Manila, Morong, Bulacan, Laguna, Nueva Ecija, Bataan, Tarlac, and Pangasinan. The assembly elected the following: Father Pedro Dandan, President; Anastasio Francisco, Vice President; Paciano Rizal, Secretary of the Treasury; Cipriano Pacheco, Secretary of War; Teodoro Gonzales, Secretary of the Interior; Feliciano Hoxo, Secretary of Welfare. The Assembly also designated the field commanders with their corresponding military rank. The Biyak-na-Bato Republic. Unable to persuade the Filipinos to give up their arms, Primo de Rivera issued a decree on July 2, 1897, which prohibited all inhabitants to leave their villages and towns. The effect of the decree was contrary to the governor's expectations, for the people continued fighting for the Filipino cause. From his hideout, Aguinaldo issued a proclamation in July entitled "To the Brave Sons of the Philippines," in which he listed the revolutionary demands, namely, the expulsion of the friars and the return to the Filipinos of the lands they appropriated for themselves, representation in the Spanish Cortes, freedom. Number 2, representation in the Spanish Cortes. Number 3, freedom of the press. Ay, ulitin ko lang guys ha. From his hideout, Aguinaldo issued a proclamation in July entitled "To the Brave Sons of the Philippines," in which he listed the revolutionary demands, namely, number 1, the expulsion of the friars and the return to the Filipinos of the lands they appropriated for themselves. Number 2, representation in the Spanish Cortes. Number 3, freedom of the press and tolerance of all religious sects. 6. Number 4, equal treatment and pay for peninsular and insular civil servants. Number 5, abolition of the power of the government to banish citizens. And number 6, legal equality for all persons. Dapat hanggang ngayon yung number 6 i-activate. Dapat yan, legal equality for all persons. This proclamation shows that Aguinaldo was still willing to return to the Spanish fold provided his demands were met. This in spite of the fact that before July, he and his men had already established a republican government at Biyak-na-Bato known as the Biyak-na-Bato Republic. The provisional constitution of this republic was prepared by Felix Ferrer and Isabelo R. Tacho. Tama ba? Who copied almost word for word the Cuban Constitution of Jimanguayo. The Biyak-na-Bato Constitution was signed on November 1, 1897. Its preamble states. Okay. Its preamble states the separation of the Philippines from the Spanish monarchy and their formation into an independent state with its own government called the Philippine Republic has been the end sought by the revolution and the existing war. Began on the 24th of August 1896 and therefore in its name and by the power delegated by the Filipino people, interpreting faithfully their desires and ambitions, with the representatives of the revolution and a meeting of Biyak-na-Bato, November 1, 1897, unanimously adopted the following articles for the Constitution of the state. The Constitution provides for the creation of a Supreme Council composed of a President, a Vice President, a Secretary of War, and a Secretary of the Treasury. Article 8 reflects the nationalism of the revolutionists, for it provides that Tagalog shall be the official language of the Republic. The Constitution also provides for religious liberty, freedom of education, freedom of the press, as well as the freedom to exercise any of the professions. In accordance with Article 1, the Supreme Council was created on November 2 with the following as officers: Emilio Aguinaldo, President; Mariano Trias, Vice President; Antonio Montenegro, Secretary of Foreign Affairs; Isabelo Artacho, Secretary of the Interior; Emiliano Riego de Dios, Secretary of War; Baldomero Aguinaldo, Secretary of the Treasury. Bukas na itong guys, the Troce of Biyak-na-Bato. Bye everyone, God bless.